Unfortunately, I play Yu-Gi-Oh! And probably way too much. But lately, I've been thinking a lot about a lot of archetypes that have lore attached to them, especially ones that purposely have lore attached to them, like Despia and like the 5 different archetypes that Visa Starfrost is a part of. And that got me thinking about an archetype which I really think deserves some lore to it, Goaty. Goaty is essentially this Yu-Gi-Oh archetype that's based around these different type of space fish, and I really love their design. They got this kind of like hollowish, bluish look to them, where like you kind of can see through them into the space and the atmosphere behind them. And I really just love the artwork about them. They're trash, but I love the artwork. Now, looking at the type of lore that Konami's been giving archetypes over the past couple of years, they wouldn't give Goaty the type of lore or like attention that I would want them to have. So I'm gonna be crazy enough to try to give Goaty the type of lore that I think that they need and deserve, quite frankly, because the artwork just looks too good for it to not have lore. Now, the type of lore that I would want to see for Goaty is more of along the cosmic horror type of side. Thinking about movies like The Thing and The Void, and even a little bit of the movie called Life from 2017, I think, or stuff like that. More or less like a subtle type of horror movie, not so much in your face all the time. Because the general consensus of stuff like, cosmic horror with stuff like Cthulhu and the H.P. Lovecraft monsters are like, if you look at them, then it kind of like drives you crazy or whatever. And I feel like that's such like a good thing for like monsters, because like when a monster is kind of like made, what's the word I could be looking for? Kind of when a monster is made to be more, human, I guess, it kind of like takes away from the monster aspect of it, and it doesn't really make it a monster. It just kind of like makes it like a bigger like bear or like animal that they just gotta shoot a bunch of times and then it's dead and then the movie's over. But I would want it to be somewhere near close to something like The Thing, to where no matter how hard you try and how much like fire you blow on and how many bullets you like use to try to kill it, you can't really kill it. Now, to jump into the lore side of it, I feel like the basis of it would kind of need to be like the movie Life, especially for like the alien design and things like that, because the alien design in Life, it kind of reminds you of the Golden Monsters, because it starts off as more of this like small kind of like blob mass of an alien, then it eventually evolves into this like big like alien kind of fish, I guess, kind of with like tentacles and shit like that, and it can like expand and shit like that. And it kind of reminds you of like the Golden Monster, because you can start out with something small like Paces or something like Shift, but then end up with something like Goaty of the Deep Beyond or one of the big synchro monsters. And I feel like I feel like this would be like a good way to start out. But to kind of do it differently, at least the way that I thought about it in my head, was these like it would still need to be set in space, since the Golden Monster are in space. So they would kind of be in space, but instead of like the smaller one becoming a bigger one, you could kind of start out with something like Paces being like the one that they find, the first one, because Paces would be like the smaller version of them that they find. And then once they get Paces, they're trying like experiment on Paces and things like that, try to run test shit like that. Then maybe like, okay, let's go back to Earth. But while they're trying to go back to Earth, the bigger synchro monsters are like, kind of like, I guess the bigger synchro monster could be the things that like birth Paces or birth Shift. Like the big synchro monsters could be like things that birth the smaller tuna monsters. And once they realize that Paces is gone, that's when they start to get like chased by them and they start to get like attacked by them and shit like that, instead of it just being one singular like alien and shit. And also, unlike in the movie Life, the only thing that like the only alien that I would really want to be like shown would be Paces, because then that's kind of the other thing that kind of ties it into more of like the H.P. Lovecraft monsters and shit, is that like you never really see them. Like you may see like like parts of them, you may see like the upper half or something like that. Like you don't really see like the monster in full. Like in any of the Cthulhu movies, you don't see the full you don't see Cthulhu's whole body. You might see like his face and like his teeth, but you never see his full body. So you never really know what they look like. And I feel like since secret monsters like on their like card art are like portrayed to be like so fucking big, that I feel like you really could take advantage of that and only like show like the eyes or like the teeth, or show like like the claws or like the horns or something like that. And I really feel like you could take advantage of how big they are portrayed on their card art in the movie. And also, I kind of like that, like a little attention to detail, because I feel like it would keep the mystique about them without giving away like the whole monsters. Obviously, you would still want to know what they look like, but I feel like you would need to show enough of it, but not too much of it, so that the mystique of the monsters could still be kept, and not like just be like, oh, like it kind of, and not like in the movie life where like eventually toward the end of the movie we see what the monster looks like in its total. Like we see how big it is, what its face was like, and everything, but just kind of show us, the face, the teeth, and things like that, so that we can kind of keep the mystique of the monsters, around. Because at the end of the day, we're not really supposed to see what they really look like, because they're not really monsters. They're more like entities. They're more kind of like thoughts, I guess. Because to kind of like give it a little parallel, the Superman villain, Doomsday, he has like a human-esque form, but he's not really a like alien that has a form or like a body. He's kind of just like, the thought of chaos and destruction, but he gives himself a human or alien human-esque form so that people could like recognize him, and he could like, travel amongst worlds without just, tower over the whole fucking thing like Galactus kind of. And since these H.P. Lovecraft type monsters are more of entities, not monsters, I feel like if you show the full body of it, it would kind of like take away from it would kind of take away from the scariness a little bit, because the fact that like you could see them, like you can only see like certain parts of the monster because they're so big. I feel like that adds just another level of like fear to the monster and to the movie itself. So to kind of jump back into the plot a little bit, the plot of the movie that I would think would be of the best, at least to start out with, from what I've thought about in the past couple of days, is that they have these astronauts who are going out into space to kind of like, go to this, go in this area of space where they found, some activity, because in every space movie it's always they found some activity off a satellite or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But essentially is that they find pacers sort of like, floating out in the outskirts in the atmosphere that you kind of see in the back of the Goldie cars and stuff like that, and they find him. They're like, oh shit, like, and of course, like every alien astronaut movie, they want to capture it and run a test on it and take it back to Earth to see what it is and blah blah blah. But once they capture it, they basically realize that like Paces is like the baby form of the big Goldie monsters, and essentially for the rest of the movie, they're basically being chased by the bigger Goldie monsters throughout space or whatever. Or basically they're being chased by the bigger Goldie monsters throughout space and things like that. But the thing that I kind of wanted to hone in on is that we never really see them, so most of the shots in the movie would be from the ship. So kind of like how in Cloverfield, in the first one, you never really see what like the monster is, so you never really like see what's chasing them and what's throwing like buildings and part of statues and shit like that. But so most of the shots in the movie would be from like inside of the spaceship or space station or whatever they're in, and you just kind of see like glimpses of it, like of like the bigger Goldie monsters running against the ship or like ramming against the ship. Or I think even one of them had like lasers, so you can even have like the one that like shoots lasers, I guess, like like shooting lasers at the ship to get back Pacers, or to get back one of the baby Goldie, to get back one of the baby Goldie monsters that they basically kidnapped and trying to like run tests on and run experiments on. I guess like they're like barely getting away and things like that. But like the big sort of reveal at the end would be Goldie the Deep Beyond, because Goldie the Deep Beyond is the boss monster of the deck. So when Goldie the Deep, so they've narrowly avoided the other Goldie Synchro monsters and Synopsis, which is the squid Goldie monster or something like that. And toward the end of the movie, they're about to get away, but then all they see in front of the ship is the eyes of Goldie the Deep Beyond, just the yellow reflection of the eyes and like half of his head, but like to where you can see his eyes and things like that. And he just appears in front of the ship, and the ship just stops. Like he didn't like ram into the ship or nothing, but the ship just stops. We don't know the actual size of Goldie the Deep Beyond, so we don't know if it like wrapped his body around the ship or something like that. But the only thing that you see at the end is just his eyes. That's it. Because they're about to get away, then all of a sudden, all you see is Goldie the Deep Beyond's eyes, and it cuts to black. That could be like one version of the movie, but I feel like that would make a good fucking horror movie. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and they don't, and to kind of keep it clear, they don't kill any of the Goldie monsters. Like the Goldie monsters are still alive, But let's just say, to kind of like, to make it a little bit more interesting, we can just say when they got away from the other Goaty monsters, or the bigger Goaty monsters, they kind of like went through not necessarily a portal, but more of like they kind of went through like a void type of like wall that like protects the realm that the Goaty monsters live in. But once they go out of said realm and they like drive out and they're like, oh shit, we got out, and they try to go away, boom, you see Goaty Deep Beyond's eyes in front of the ship. They didn't really make it out of the realm, they just made it out of part of the realm, because they realized that Goaty Deep Beyond can bend the realm to make it however small or however big they need it to be. And because they were getting away with Paces, Goaty Deep Beyond made the realm as big as it could ever be, so they can technically like never get out, and they didn't escape. But we don't see what happens to them, because we don't see like a Goaty Deep Beyond had these like 80,000 teeth or whatever the fuck, or like laser eyes or something like that. You just see his eyes peering in front of the ship, and then it just cuts to black. I feel like that could be like the good like grounds for like a decent like horror movie. Obviously, I'm not a filmmaker and I'm not a storyteller, so I wouldn't really know how like that would go, but I feel like that could be a really good fucking horror movie. And I feel like Goaty is like the perfect archetype that it doesn't have any lore. It's not like Branded Despia and so where like literally you just have to read through the cards to figure out what the fucking anime would be about, or like the Visa Starfrost lore. You literally just have to Google Visa Starfrost and Scareclaw and shit like that, and you'll know the lore. Like, it's easy to figure out through the cards. But Goaty, kind of like how the movie would be, you don't really know much about it, and they don't really have much lore. You just kind of can like make assumptions as to what you think that it would be about based off the card art and based off like the monster effects and things like that. Or the other version that I was thinking about when I was thinking about some of these movies is that Paces and the smaller Goaty monsters could just be smaller versions of the bigger Goaty monsters. And like in the movie life, they could transform into the bigger synchro monsters. Like Paces, for example, could be Goaty Deep Beyond, but that's like a smaller version of itself that it uses to kind of fly around space more freely than his bigger version would be of the Deep Beyond and things like that. But that's just my opinion. Again, I'm not a director, I'm not a movie maker, I'm not a storyteller, but this just more or less me like theorizing about this is more or less me theorizing a movie basically, because I really would love to see something like that from Konami, even though I know that this would never happen and they never would touch anything like cosmic horror related shit like that. I just feel like there's a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes that don't have lore on purpose, but would make for good movies, and would make for good movies. And I feel like Goaty would be the perfect like sci-fi cosmic horror. But I don't know. Let me know what y'all think about it in the comments, and I'll see y'all in my next